We're back with Swarm Weekly, where we recap the Seattle Swarm's highlights of the match week. I'm Hornet alongside Pandy, who's given us a rundown of who the Swarm were up against in Week 3.
Your Swarm had a full 8-match schedule this week that started off with Ramen Bowl, who faced the Washington Rebellion and the Philadelphia Plague. NCS played their matches against the Kansas City Carnage and Los Angeles Griffins. The undefeated MAC League also faced the Kansas City Carnage and Los Angeles Griffins, while the Linguini League had their games against the Santa Fe Kings and the Utah Crays.
Up first is the Linguini League crew, who are up against the Santa Fe Kings and the Utah Crays for Week 3. Blaze and Array served as a lethal offensive powerhouse against Santa Fe, being in the right place at the right time with 8 goal contributions and 9 demos between the both of them. Pivot 97 played a critical role in both series this weekend, having a total of 6 goals and 6 assists, while also setting up transitional plays to get their team into the offensive. And activating their reserve player, That One Douche finished off their weekend with Lit Night against the Utah Crays. The captain in reserve had an unbelievable offensive performance, where That One Douche shot 64% and Lit Night shot 78%. Unreal stats to go 1-1 on the weekend, with a 3-1 win versus Utah and a 1-3 loss versus Santa Fe. I can't wait to see what this team has for Week 4.
Next, we take a look at MAC League, who had another solid week, beating Los Angeles 3-1 and securing a point in a Game 5 loss to Kansas City. Ethan and Fort were a dynamic duo, tallying 8 assists and 10 saves between them versus Los Angeles, while also capitalizing on key mistakes made by the Griffins to build non-stop pressure and momentum. Another duo to focus on was Dangerous for Life and Dirt, who were a dual strike package this week. Dangerous for Life played solid with 7 goal contributions and 5 demos to open the lane for the Swarm's reserve player, Dirt, who punched in 6 goals and 10 saves versus Kansas City. And finally, the glue that brought this team together was your ML captain Cammy, who had 19 goal contributions and 13 saves on the weekend.
Up next is the NCS crew, who also played the Kansas City Carnage and the Los Angeles Griffins for Week 3. JK Frost had a big weekend in both series, securing 9 saves versus LA, while also putting the Swarm on the board with 3 goals per series. Versus Kansas City, Pardon brought his own Carnage to the series by using their physicality, inflicting 11 demos while peppering the net with 9 shots and 2 goals. Frosty Brew was a critical player in both series this weekend with 25 shots and 11 saves to make their impact from coast to coast. And finally, Cammy, yes, you're hearing this right, the ML captain, coming up to the NCS team to sub in versus LA, where he proved himself by getting 5 goal contributions and 6 saves. With that substitution, the NCS Swarm were able to go 1-1 on the weekend with a 3-1 win versus LA and a 1-3 loss versus the Carnage.
And finally, we see the Ramen Boys, who went 1-1 this week, dropping their first series 0-3 to Washington, but bounced back under an hour later to take home a 3-2 win versus the Plague. Goyo was the coast-to-coast hero, where he was constantly on the receiving end of plays, putting himself into any position effectively to slate 20 saves and 12 goal contributions on the weekend. Hornet was your playmaker this week, occupying the neutral space and creating key plays in transition. Alongside 16 demos and 7 assists, Hornet surely made his opponents work for their position. And finally, Tater was the Swarm's clinical finisher, using unbelievable mechanics to score 10 high-caliber goals on the weekend. He always posed as a threat on the ball, using his finesse to make himself even tougher to deal with. Overall, the Ramen Bowl Swarm learned a lot this week through a tough loss, but most of all learned how to bounce back in clutch moments.
And with that, here's a quick recap for the series that were played over this weekend for Week 3. Ramen Bowl played a doubleheader on Friday, where they first lost to the Rebellion 0-3, but bounced back to immediately secure a 3-2 win versus the Philadelphia Plague. The NCS crew almost secured a point against the Kansas City Carnage, falling just short with a 1-3 loss, but regained to take home a 3-1 win versus the Los Angeles Griffins. The MAC League team was able to secure a point against the Kansas City Carnage, taking them to Game 5, and they also took a 3-1 win over the Los Angeles Griffins as well. And lastly, the Linguini League crew lost to the Santa Fe Kings 1-3 at first, but were able to take home a 3-1 win in the rivalry match versus the Utah Crays. Lots of 1-1 records this weekend. What do you think about it, Pandy?
Well, Hornet, just like winning, every team has to learn how to lose, and we certainly saw some resilience this week from everyone. There were a couple tough losses here and there, but in every case, every single one of these players knew how to bounce back and make a tough schedule into a very respectable result. The Swarm overall moved to 12-6, which is a record to be absolutely proud of with the strength of schedule that we have seen so far. As for series highs, we saw some unbelievable performances individually. Cammy and Tater were both sharpshooters with 8 goals each. Ethan and Cammy saw the vision with 6 assists each, and Goyo was an absolute unit in net with 13 saves. For the second week in a row, Tater had your series high in shots at 23, and Pardon again alongside Tater with 11 demos around the pitch.
And we also had a lot of substitutes and reserves stepping up this week as well. We had Cammy stepping up to the NCS team where they got their win versus the Los Angeles Griffins. Dirt came in from the reserve spot on the ML team to get their 1 point against the Kansas City Carnage in Game 5. And Lit Knight came in from the reserve on the Linguini League team to secure their 3-1 win over Utah as well.
The Swarm are still looking sharp after a very important Week 3. We saw some great action this week from all 4 teams, so I cannot wait to see what Week 4 has to bring. Good luck!
It was definitely a good week to learn from. That's all we got for you guys for Swarm Weekly Week 3. I'm Hornet.
And I'm Pandy.
And we'll see you guys next week.